Sometimes people will come up with an excuse as to why they have to spend a lot of money. Well, I have to spend all this money to get my mani and my pedi because my job requires it. I have to spend $30,000 on this car because my job says so. I mean, I need something reliable to take the kids around in, okay? And now he's saying, I had to spend $30,000 to buy gold.
So I work in the humanitarian sector. I help refugees.
Okay. He works in the humanitarian sector, so he helps refugees. I'm going to assume that that's some sort of non-profit work. I'm also going to assume, it seems pretty good money. He's making what I'm making as a school teacher. Okay. He makes 63. I make 62. So I don't know. I just always assume when you're in that sort of industry, you're kind of like non-profit. Just shy of volunteer, but clearly he's paid if he's, making that amount of money. However, when your debt is just as much as what you're making, folks, I've been there. My first bankruptcy was for about, right around, 25,000. All right. And of course, this was, when in my early 20s. So you figure I'm 56 now. It was a long time ago. But my opinion, I wouldn't file bankrupt on it if it's at all possible. If he can, maybe work some extra hours helping refugees, perhaps. I don't know. My hunch is Dave is going to say, keep pushing forward. Don't file bankruptcy. But I can tell you, having filed bankrupt, and if he's making here $1,500 a month payments, there can come a point where you are literally just spinning your wheels, making payment after payment. And like the caller said, it's not going anywhere. It can't go anywhere unless he can get ahead of the debt. All right. That's why people's student loans don't go anywhere. And they'll pay on it for 10 years and they'll go, I don't understand. I paid on it for 10 years. I never missed a payment. But what they don't realize, and what I didn't realize until I had my $110,000 student loan forgiven, is the amount that you're paying. Okay, unless it is enough to dip into the principal, all you're going to do is just keep up with interest. So I hate to say it. I know he likes working with refugees. He may need to do something like work with refugees and do another job. I guarantee you, though, the Dave is. I'll put a paycheck on it. Okay, because I don't listen to these in advance. Dave is not going to tell him to file bankruptcy. I also know he's not going to tell them to file bankruptcy just for the fact that I love the Ramsey show. Dave did file bankruptcy, but he really doesn't want other people to do it too. And I'm aware that's because of his devastating effects emotionally it has on you and all that. And that is true. But in my case, I got to the point where it was easier to deal with the emotional effect of bankruptcy. I hate to say it, as low and, to the ground as it took me. All right. And every ounce of self-esteem, there can come a point where, just like I made the decision to file bankruptcy, even though it was on way less, and Dave made the decision to file bankruptcy, it's because we realized there was a point where you can't get ahead. And when you get to the point where you can't get ahead, it may be worth to throw in the towel.
Okay. You work in the humanitarian sector and you help refugees.
Yes, but I work in the finance department.
I see. Okay.
Okay, that would explain his income.
All right. How old are
I'm sorry, Dave, didn't mean to interrupt. Notice he works in the finance department. And what have we heard, folks? People who work in accounting, finance, banking, and they can't keep track of their own debt. Because we have to remember, what you're paid to do for a job can be very different from your own personal life at home. It's kind of like, my mother was a reading instructor, okay? And God love her, but she wasn't the most patient teacher in teaching me how to read. I would have been much better off having someone else teach me how to read. Okay. So just because you're paid at your job to do one thing doesn't mean it translates into your own personal life. And I think with people who work in the banking, finance, that sort of anything dealing with accounting, budgeting, bookkeeping, we think to ourselves, why can't you keep that? Why can't you apply that same skill to your own life? Because when you apply it to your own life, it's personal. Okay. What you have to give up. to make that budget meet is personal. That's the only thing I can logically assume. Whereas if I ask the company, hey, I want you to order, fewer desks and we need to have less fancy coffee and we need to cut back here and there, that's not personal. That's just business. But when it comes to you having to make those changes and cuts in your own personal life, that's totally different. So we can't shame on people that just because they work in finance and can budget and calculate and do all that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to translate into their own life. I guarantee you, David's going to tell him, go get another job. I guarantee you that's what he's going to tell him.
What are you?
I'm 28 years old.
Okay.
He's 28. Oh, he's 28 and he's living that American, let's get into debt. I had to write it down. Okay, for those of you who are new, I have to write these numbers down because I forget. So he has $20,000 in credit card, $22,000 in student loan. Ouch. It's all ouch. Okay, and $20,000 in a car. That's too much car. I can tell you that. With that amount of debt, that's way too much car. As you know, the student loan is not bankruptable, but $22,000 he can peel himself out of it. And $20,000 credit card debt, that just sucks. Basically, he's going to have to get another job because he's paying $1,500 a month. This is going to require him to work more hours.
It's just you? Or you have kids,
I have a wife and a son.
Wife and a son. What's your wife make?
My wife, she came from overseas, so she only has a high school education, so she's a stay-at-home mom.
Wait a minute. She came from overseas. Okay, so it's international. She only has a high school education. Did you know McDonald's is hiring between $15 to $20 an hour? Did you know if you live in California right now and two people work at McDonald's, between them, they're making $40 an hour, which is more than what I make as a school teacher? Yeah, I understand it's two people making the income, but two people making an income right now in California at $20 an hour at McDonald's will make more than what I make per hour with 2 master's degrees under my belt in a professional field. So him saying, well, she only has a high school education, there are probably more jobs available without needing anything more than a high school education. There probably are jobs that need the college degree. I hope he's not one of those guys that makes excuses for her family. I really hope he's not. We've heard that before on this channel, right? Sometimes they're making excuses for each other as to why they can't do something.
Okay. How old's the son?
He's 7 months old.
Okay.
She can't afford to stay home. She They have a 7-month-old. So they knew baby was coming. My question is this, depending upon how long she's been here, why didn't they work to clear some of this debt before baby came? Look, I'm not telling people how to family plan. That's certainly none of my business, nor anything I want to get involved in. But dang, if you know you're going to have a child, I guess just with the way I was raised, it would go something like this. Okay, we know we'd like to have a baby in the next year. Again, I don't know how long they've been together, but let's just assume they had at least a couple years. I mean, they got married. This is how I was raised, how I would have been taught. Okay, so we know we want to have a child in 2024. We know that we're married. I think we need to kick ass and we need to get rid of this student loan. We need to get rid of this debt as quickly as possible. At least cut it in half. At least cut it in half. If the baby's only 7 months old, congratulations on the baby. If the baby is only 7 months old, what were they doing with their time before the baby came? And I'm not talking a few months, I'm talking a few years. I'm not going to say, he said she is overseas. If you're thinking what I'm thinking, you're thinking possibly what I'm thinking, I ain't going to go there. Okay, I'm not going to go there. But I'm assuming this was all, we fell in love and, we want to have a family and all that. Okay, because he's in his late 20s. But my question would be, what did you do with all that time before the baby came? That's what I would want to know. And I'd also like to know the student loan. Well, he says he works in finance, so I'm going to assume that he graduated with it. But really, he should ask himself, what did he do with all the time before baby came? Because it's my belief that once you have a kid, it for some people, at least listening to some of these calls, it can be next to impossible to get out of debt. Not that it's impossible. Not that it's impossible, but it sure makes the journey harder. So what did they do before the kid came? And if he's going to give excuses of, well, she only has a high school degree, so therefore she can't work. That ain't no excuse at all. She needs to work. He can't. She doesn't have the luxury, or they as a couple, they do not have the luxury of being a stay-at-home housewife. Now, I understand right now, while the baby is very little, that she may have to stay at home. But as soon as she can start working, she needs to be bringing an income, or at least find some sort of way to make money off the internet doing something at home. Hell, it could be customer service at home. You ever called customer service and you can actually hear a kid in the background? It's like, I'm cool with it. People have to do what they got to do. They got to do what they got to do. This couple does not have the luxury of being a stay-at-home and family. He and I make identical income. Okay, we make identical. My base teaching is 62. He says he makes 63. All right. If you strapped me on with this debt, I would be broke. At $1,500 a month. Okay, that's on my paycheck. That's dang near half a paycheck. Not quite. I make a little more than that, okay? But I mean, that's a huge chunk. To give you some perspective, when I look at this $1,500 a month payment that he's making towards those three things, and keep in mind, family, that's $1,500 a month for the credit card, the student loan, and the car, okay? It's nothing else, all right? That $1,500 a month is my cost of living as a debt-free person, okay? Because my cost of living is about $1,300 a month. Add on another $500 for food, comes to about $17. So just respectively, this is about $200 to $300 shy of my entire cost of living as a debt-free 57-year-old woman here in Tampa. That's how much that is.
So what's been the situation in your life where you can't live on $63,000? Tell us more.
It's mainly, stupid mistakes. Before I got married, I had no debt besides the student loans, and I had $20,000 in savings. And I think after I got married, especially the wedding in our country is very expensive. The wedding cost me alone $30,000, and then on top of that, diapers and gold for the wife and just. I brought the credit.
Did I hear him say gold for the wife and the wedding was mandatory $30,000? Is this okay? I am naive to weddings. Okay, family, I'm gonna admit I don't know anything. What I know wouldn't even fit on a quarter of a smallest Post-it note. Gold for the wife, and he had to spend $30,000. I would like to know what culture this is. I have a hard time. I mean, unless you're living in the, some little village someplace, I have a hard time believing that people are forced to pay for $30,000 weddings. And you've heard me say this, and that is sometimes people will come up with an excuse as to why they have to spend a lot of money. Well, I have to spend all this money to get my mani and my pedi because my job requires it. I have to spend $30,000 on this car because my job says so. I mean, I need something reliable to take the kids around in, okay? And now he's saying, I had to spend $30,000 to buy gold. Good Lord. I'm sorry. Like I said, unless there is some strict cultural custom that he too is a part of, okay, I don't understand it. But that's just me, and maybe that's my lack of cultural understanding, and maybe I can be educated on that. To me, nobody forces you, at least here living in the United States as a U.S. citizen that I'm aware of, that says you must spend $30,000 for this wedding, unless you married a type of woman that demanded a $30,000 wedding, and then the least of your problems is this 60 grand in debt that you have.
I'm sorry, did you say gold?
Yeah, have to buy gold. Yes, that's how you get married overseas.
Okay.
The gold was alone like $10,000.
Okay.
So you got $40,000 that you didn't have to get married.
Mm-hmm.
And then you bought a $20,000 car you couldn't afford.
Sweet Jesus.
Yes.
Yeah.
I really hope this was the love of his life, the woman of his dreams. If you're a United States citizen, like I said, I just have a hard time believing that any culture and custom can force you to have to go into debt like that. I have a really hard time believing that. I believe that you can choose to go into debt like that. You can choose to. But I just have a hard time believing that a gun was put to his head. It was like, you must buy the gold. You must pay $30,000 for a wedding if you want this woman. And you are a U.S. citizen and you are free to get married here, right here in this country. You don't have to go over there. But I need to get her in-laws to like me. Oh, hell. As far as I'm concerned, if your in-laws require us to go 40 grand in debt, if that's what your in-laws require, we either going to do it the cheaper way, which is we get married, say, here in the United States. All right? Because who's dealing with the debt? Are the in-laws going to take care of this debt? Oh, hell no. Heck no, they're not going to take care of this debt. Who's taking care of the debt? You see, my thinking is that when you're the one paying the bill, okay, you can dictate where this money is going as long as you're paying the bill and you're paying it as we're going along. Not, oh, do the whole wedding thing, yada, yada, and then I'll reimburse you afterwards. You know, we've heard stories about that family, have we not? Where a parent tells another kid, oh, go to school, run up the debt, I'll pay you later. And then the parents don't pay up when the parents get the bill and go, golly gee, Martha, that's not the figure that I was expecting to pay for student loans. Okay, but so long as I and my spouse are dealing with the debt and we are the ones expected to pay it, there is no amount of debt that I'm willing to go into to get someone to marry me because our in-laws say that that's what we have to do. Not when I'm a U.S. citizen, can get married right here, go down to the little chapel, and we could have $30,000 in our pocket. Even if the gold were required, and I don't understand it, and I admit I don't understand it because I don't understand the culture and custom, okay? So I'm putting that out there, all right? Even if the gold had to be bought, was the $30,000 wedding necessary? Think about that.
And I don't think diapers is even on the list here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was no family planning for this baby. Again, I'm not blaming the baby. Don't come after me for that. Come after me for anything else. That's fine. I'm cool with that. Okay. But that there was no planning a baby. No planning. And depending upon how long they've known each other, this could be a whole lot of wasted time that they could have used to budget this. Because I'm going to be honest, okay, making the same amount that he does, all right, per year, we gross the same amount. If you gave me this bill and you said, hey, Carrie, figure out how to get us out of it, and you put, in my case, would be a husband and a child on top of it, oh, hell no, there's no way to get it out of this. And for those who can't see the screen, because I know some of you work out when you're listening to this, the screen on Dave Ramsey says, should I let my credit cards go to collections? Hell, I would. Go to collections and see if you can, negotiate a lower price. But the problem is that can take months to do. It's not as simple as just, let it just go to collections, let it get behind for 2-3 months and then we can negotiate and wipe it down. No, some places it can take years. Yes, months before the collections people are even willing to negotiate. It just kind of all depends. But there's no way that Dave's going to tell him to file bankrupt. But looking at these numbers, again, here I am. I'm in the same income bracket. Give me a husband. Give me a 7-month-old. Give me $60,000 in bills that I can't pay, plus the cost of living. Bankrupt. Absolute bankrupt. Boardwalk, park, place, all that monopoly stuff. Give it back to the bank. You can't afford it.
So, okay. Well, so the answer to your question is that when we have financial problems, including when I had them, the problems are not the problem, they're the symptom. And what I'm hearing is you have a tremendous ability to you really struggle with saying no to anyone.
That's correct.
He should have said no to the bars of gold and $30,000 wedding. It also been a great way to test what type of woman he was with. Because remember, folks, he said before he had, what was it, $20,000 surplus. He only has student loan. He actually had things under control.
And so you're going to have to practice that word. No. No.
Mm-hmm.
No. We don't have the money. No. We're not in Congress. No. I don't care what the culture says. No. I don't have the money. No. I can't.
Isn't that what I was saying? I think I deserve a round of applause for that. Exactly. That's what I was saying. I cannot imagine a culture or anybody, take away culture. Heck, take away culture, okay? I can't imagine anybody forcing me or my spouse and me to go $40,000 into debt because that's what our culture says. Well, does your culture say who the heck is going to pay the bill if you don't have the money? But our culture says we have to do it. Again, I don't wish to be culturally insensitive. Okay. I have an international family. So, okay. But there comes a point as adults where there needs to be an adult in the room that says, look, culture aside, we don't have this. Is the culture going to cover the debt? Is the culture going to fund the bankruptcy? In other words, what is, quote, the culture, which is not a real person, let us remember, okay? It's not a real person. There is no such thing as the culture, just like there's no such thing as the corporation, all right? But if the culture is not the one paying for it, it's coming out of me, and I got to work my hiney off to get the bill paid, it's limited to what I and my to-be spouse can afford.
Can't do something that I don't have the money to do. No, we can't go over there. No, I don't want to do this. No, I can't be here right now because I'm having to work extra jobs because I didn't say no before.
And speaking of saying no, it's a real good test on just what type of woman she is. And it might even be a good test on why she married you. Did she marry you because she saw you as an endless supply of money? Because you could not say no to financing her culture, so to speak? Or did she really marry you because you have a true partner? She's in your corner. You're going to fight together to save yourselves financially. I mean, really, some people go, but that's not fair. That's the culture she comes from. But again, he ain't marrying the culture. He's marrying the woman.
Correct.
So now you got extra jobs coming and you're going to sell your car, and that's the way you can pay your credit card. So get rid of the car and get you a cheap car and take 3 extra jobs and work your brains out. And by the way, she can do something.
She can do a lot. She can do a lot. When he was giving out the bars of gold, I never thought I'd say that, okay? Giving out the bars of gold, okay? What was he thinking to himself? Any of these people gonna help me with the 3 jobs? Anybody gonna help me get a bus pass because I've lost my car? Of course not. What is that saying? I'm not good at remembering it, but it's spending money to try to impress people, that don't really give 2 rips about you, right? You're never going to hear from them again after the wedding anyways. They're overseas.
Agree.
And she needs to do something to create some income. Even with, even if it's while the baby's napping, she does something on eBay. I don't care what she does, but she needs to do something to create some income since we've invested $40,000 into her.
You're not wrong,
That was
Dave.
pretty cold.
That was pretty cold, but you're not.
They are on the same financial marriage track as so many of us, as I was on even when I was married and then divorced, okay, in 2013. And that is marrying without discussing money, without discussing, how do we intend to fund this? And this is why I understand Dave Ramsey saying, you need to say no. If she married him with the impression that money is just ever so flowing bars of gold, okay, if she married him with that mind frame, this marriage is doomed. Oh, yes, it is. Because they've done everything. They've done everything that they should not do, right? They're spending money influenced by other people instead of looking at their own budget. They clearly did not use the time before getting married to shore up their budget. Now that they have baby and all of that, he's giving her excuses. I mean, he's helping. He's contributing. He's not fully a victim. He's contributing to a situation. Well, she can't work. You know, she has no skill beyond high school. Is that how you're going to raise your kid too? If your kid doesn't go anywhere beyond high school, well, my child can't move away from home. They don't have any skill beyond high school. Watch your kid find skills, even if all they have is a high school diploma and you want them out. Just something to think about.
Not wrong. That's true. You know, that's worth talking about. Stay-at-home mom. That, you know, if that's the choice you want to make, that's true. That's fine. But there's something that you can do to earn money.
Being a stay-at-home mom is, in most cases, a luxury. Being a stay-at-home, I don't even like to say mom, dad, whichever parent. Okay, having a stay-at-home parent is a luxury. To me, it is sheer luxury. Okay. Now, again, I'm putting aside people who have special needs and someone has to stay at home because there is a medical special needs situation. And as I've told you before, family, okay, when I'm thinking, when I do commentary on this channel, I'm talking in terms of just mainstream. I'm never talking in terms of special needs or anything like that. So put that aside. Okay. So just for those of you who might be new listeners, okay, I'm always talking in terms of mainstream. There's always exceptions and I recognize that. But for just Joe Blow, you know, working stiff, you know, Susie America, all right, being a stay-at-home mom or stay-at-home dad, it's a luxury. And too many people, from the calls that we've listened to, right, family, from the calls that we've listened to, too many people are using it as just, they're using it without thought. They're using it without planning. And then one poor person, usually the dad, becomes the working stiff, having to hold, like Dave said, go get 3 jobs. If the father has to go get 3 jobs, mom needs to go and get 2. Or maybe dad's just plumb tired and dad needs to stay at home and mom and go and get 3 jobs. Somebody needs to do it. They have an income problem. That's what they have, an income problem. This is going to be a real test on the strength of the marriage. And my gut hunch, it will not surprise me if it does not survive. And I only say that not to be pessimistic, but knowing what I know today about my own marriage situation, listening to the calls of people that have come in on this show, listening to news stories dealing with debt, there seems to be a common theme to all of this, and that is nobody talks about it that's in the relationship. Nobody shores up the building. Nobody makes plans. They just, myself included, you just kind of get married and you hope it's all going to work itself out. Debt does not ever work itself out. And if it does work itself out, it's not going to be in your favor. It's going to be in the bankruptcy court's favor, the creditor's favor, whatever. It's never going to be in favor of helping you. It's going to be in favor of helping someone else. So much like here in Florida, you have to shore up buildings for hurricanes. Okay. We do it before the hurricane hits. At least we're supposed to, okay? At least that's what the HOA bylaws say, all right? We shore things up first. Too many couples. I'm guilty. I'm throwing myself in there also. We don't shore it up first. We wait till the disaster hits, and then we look at each other and go, oh, have you got money to pay for it? Let me look at my checking account. Have you got money? That is no way to run a household business. It's just not the way to do it. Not if you're trying to clear debt and advance yourself forward. If you're just trying to survive, yes, and then 30 years down the road, you can look at each other and go, where's the money? We have nothing for retirement.
And there's so many great, if you don't want to pay the full cost of daycare, there's great Mom's Day Out programs where it can give you some time back.
7 months olds sleep a lot.
Yeah, there's time back.
Open up the computer and start doing something.
Yeah.
I'd really like to know how long they had known each other before. But I guarantee you, with the bars of gold marriage, there was wasted time to shore up their finances.
while they're sleeping. There's something you can do and earn some money. And Abdel, you're going to be working more because you need more money, and you're going to be on a really tight budget. You're not going out to eat. You're not going on vacation, and you're selling a car that you shouldn't have bought. And then you can work through this, and you can pay it. No, you don't let your credit cards go and then not pay a bill that you promised to pay when you have the ability to do it.
Did Dave have the ability to pay his bills? Love you, Mr. Ramsey, but, okay? All I know is if you gave me this situation, and again, we make identical income, I'd be looking at it and go, we're sunk. Because, guys, you got to remember, this $1,500 is just for those 3 bills. So let's expand it here. He and I make the same income, and I'm paying for all of my cost of living for just one person to feed. Okay? One person using showers, one person with the electricity on, and I'm good at turning it off. Okay? My base with no credit cards, no student loans, no car payment. Okay? I did go back into debt so I could pay off my new 2024 Toyota Corolla Hybrid. Okay, I bought that about 2 months ago, and I'm doing it in about 7 payments. I have about 5 payments left. Knock on wood, okay? But I look at that just for me. That's about $1,700 to feed me, and that's me being debt-free. Now, stick on a wife or a husband, okay? A partner, all right? A spouse. Now, put a child on it. Now, she doesn't work, so we're talking medical insurance for all of them, feeding for all of them, clothing. Me, if this were a game of Monopoly, I would throw it in. I'd say I'm bankrupt. Here is why, part of why I would do it, okay? There comes a point, and this is what I learned from my bankruptcy number 1. Bankruptcy number 2 was an auto repossession. Different situation, still bankruptcy, but slightly different. Not nearly as traumatizing as bankruptcy 1 was credit card. That was disaster, emotionally disastrous. Okay. But here's why I would throw in the towel. There comes a point where you have to decide, you only have so much energy per day. Where are you going to put that energy? Are you going to put that energy just to try to peel yourself out of debt to wind up back at square zero? Worky, 3 jobs. And guys, this is not a bill that's going to end anytime soon. Okay? This is not one of those, well, you just do it for a year and all of this bill will be paid. Oh, heck no, it will not. Realistically, this could be a couple years. Remember, he's not running this on his own terms. He's also got a spouse and a kid that have needs. And unexpected needs. You got kids, unexpected extra bill, whatever. Okay? They grow, they need clothes. So it's not as easy, in my opinion, for us to just think, well, if he works 2-3 extra jobs, all right, and don't tell him to Uber. I don't want anybody Ubering for me that's working 3 jobs. I got to be honest. Knowing that you're up late, up tired, you're running around, you're gigging away, all right, and you're working 3 jobs. That's a concern, especially when I know you're working a full-time job. Maybe it's not so much a concern if you're working 10 hours on Uber, 20 hours here, another, 15 hours there, whatnot. But you tell me you're working full-time in accounting, which takes a lot of mental, I'm assuming, okay? And now he's supposed to go work 2-3 jobs, and darn well, Dave's going to say, go delivery, pizza, Uber. You want that guy driving for you? You want to be his passenger? There comes a point where we have to be realistic about telling someone to go work 2-3 jobs. There just comes a point where like when I had to file bankruptcy the first time, I got to the point where I went, I can spend all my time struggling to crawl out of this debt just to wind up at zero. And that could take a couple of years. Come on, guys, got to be realistic here. Okay? That could take a couple of years. He's got wife and child. It's not just him. He ain't going to bed on ramen noodles every night. All right? He's got obligations. I could take a couple of years to do that, or I could file bankruptcy. And chances are he would not be able to file 7 because he does have an income. Chances are I'm willing to bet he'd go chapter 13. Okay, he can get this $1,500 a month, say down to $400 a month. I'm not kidding. They'll take away almost everything. He'll pay on that for maybe a year, that might even be a couple years. It might, okay? But he can pay on that, all right? And start moving forward. I guess bankruptcy to me isn't just about the dollars that are being spent or not spent. It's about time management as far as what's the quickest way to get ahead. Now, I am aware that there are people who will say, well, you took out the debt. It doesn't matter how long it takes for you to get out of it. You owe it. We can preach that all day long. I took out a $110,000 loan. I kind of effed that up, couldn't pay it. Thank God, after 16 years of teaching middle school, I'll be finishing 18 years tomorrow. I'm so excited, okay? On Friday, tomorrow's 18th year mark, all right? But there comes a point where I had to look at it and go, where is my time best managed? And yeah, he's young, okay? I think 28, 29, late 20s is what I remember. He's young, but again, he still has a wife and kids. Where is his time best managed? Struggling, holding 3 jobs just to climb out of this to get to zero that might take realistically a couple of years, or file 13. I'm telling you, they're not going to let him file straight 7. I can pretty much assure it because his income is actually decent. Okay, yeah, I know it's not decent, in the sense of what it could have been, with inflation, all that. But let's put that aside for a minute, okay? He's not earning, $25,000 a year, all right? So, in my opinion, his time would be better served to go to court to file Chapter 13 and reorganize. That's what I would do, and I've done it, and it can be an absolute huge relief, and you still get the perks of being able to lower that bill. You'll pay literally pennies on the dollar to the creditors. All right. And one thing about it that I prefer also about Chapter 13 that's better, all right, is the fact that unlike a creditor who can wheel and deal with you on the telephone and then conveniently go, oh, we never had that conversation. And you're like, no, you said that I could pay, 20 cents on the dollar. Oh, well, I don't remember that. When it's done through a Chapter 13 court, okay, when I had to do it through a Chapter 13 bankruptcy court, the first bankruptcy was full Chapter 7. But my experience with Chapter 13 also, I told you guys, if you want to know about debt, this is the right channel because I've been through it all. Okay. The neat thing about 13, if there is such as a neat thing, okay, the good thing is that it is written in stone. There is no creditor that can come back later and change their mind. You are protected by the court. And this is why, I'll be totally honest, folks, I'm a huge fan of Chapter 13. I am probably one of Chapter 13's biggest fans. Why do you think businesses do it all the time, folks? Because they still get to keep their business. They get to lower the dollar amounts, okay, of what is owed. But at the same time, they can still keep on working to grow their business. Don't think, as much as we love the Ramsey show on this channel, and we are big fans of the Ramseys, at least in this household of one, okay, if push came to shove and the Ramsey show had to file Chapter 13 to save the studio, because we would be totally lost without them, okay? But to save the studio, to save the employees, to keep things going, I guarantee it to you, they would file Chapter 13. Dave's not just going to go out and just keep on worky, all right? I guarantee it to you. So that's what I would tell him to do. Because really, this to me seems like a very hopeless financial situation under the terms that we have right now. And a Chapter 13 would protect him. And that would be much more secure than going to a creditor and just hoping and praying the creditor keeps their word, or hoping and praying for a letter from the creditor. Because family, if you've ever dealt with creditors, when you are negotiating something down, every stinking thing has to be in writing. It means nothing if it isn't on that company letterhead written to you in stone. Not just a casual little email. It needs to be formally written up. Well, that's what Chapter 13 does. To me, he would be a really good Chapter 13 candidate. But that's just my thought.
Now, the question is, are you willing to do those things? And that's going to be the $900 answer.
And I think the answer is Chapter 13. I think would be a better use of his time. It'd be better use of his time and his energy. And while he's in Chapter 13, because all of this stuff would have been negotiated okay, he can still keep working. All right? He doesn't have to change his whole life around. But seriously, do you guys want an Uber driver? You want a Lyft driver or any driver ride home from the airport that's been working, a 40-hour-week job and then is taking on 2 hours more? And you want them driving for you, working for you? Probably not.
That's so interesting to me. I mean, I come from the hillbilly culture, which the noble hillbillies, by the way, which at no point in that culture would anyone have ever paid $10,000 for the opportunity to marry someone.
I don't know any culture that does that. I understand some cultures there are dowries and stuff, but again, you're in that culture. You're living there. You got your hut. You got your teepee there. All right. I apologize if it doesn't deal with huts and teepees, okay? I get it. Just forgive me here, okay? It's like I'm from Oregon, and it's pronounced Oregon, not Oregon, okay? It's pronounced Oregon, and people think that we have wagons and stuff. Hey, you know what? It's all good.
You might have gotten paid $10,000 to get someone out of their house, but you wouldn't have paid for it. So it's so foreign to me. It's so, no pun intended. But I mean, it's obvious it's something that's a big deal in his culture. I'm not
100%.
Not disrespecting that, but I just can't get my head around it because it's not where I come from.
That's
exactly that's my thought too. It's not that I cultures do what cultures do, right? All good, okay. But when you have another culture that doesn't go by that rule, then I'd be like, let's get married in the United States.
That's right. Yeah, it's a lot of money. That's
$10,000,
$30,000
So
wedding.
you're looking at a broke
10,000.
guy who's going to bring your daughter to America, and
God help me for saying this, but I sure hope he didn't meet her on some bus tour overseas. Okay, I said it. I admit, I said it. Please, Lord, don't let it be, hey, we went on a bus trip overseas because I was lonely and couldn't find a woman in the United States because they're just no good women here in the United States, so I'm bringing her over.
yeah, I'm not going to be normal.
I'm not going to be normal. But this is a cautionary tale, I think, of how, what seems like a small amount of debt, in quotes, $20,000. I can handle that. And then you do another $20,000. I can handle that in a car loan. And then $20,000 in student loans. That's not that bad.
Yeah.
And then before you know it, like he said, it's the exact amount of your income.
It's scary to me how fast he went from
No debt to all this debt.
having some money and no debt all the way to having no money and a bunch of debt. And it all centered around not saying no to something.
Yeah.
Or not questioning the protocols.
All right, folks, that is the end. That is the end of this consumer debt chit-chat call.